I'm doing well. I'm glad that I just in the nick of time made it so my computer and internet worked. I had one of those issues. It's always right when you're about to do a call when your computer wants to update or something like that.
It is always when you've got something to do. I agree. So hello, everybody, and welcome to another Reinventing Rural live chat. We're excited to have Michael Jonas here with Rational Unicorn Legal Services PC, which we like to say that stands for pretty cool, but I know it stands for like professional corporation. And Michael's partner is in the back letting you know that she wants some attention. Is it a she or a he?
What's that? Oh, our dogs or?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we actually have two dogs. So we have a boy and a girl. We have Edison and Ginsburg.
All right. So if you follow Michael on Facebook or anything, you might see his.
She's actually here's one of them.
Oh, look at that. See, we always have to have a dog pop up on all of this. So before we get going, I want to go through a couple housekeeping things. One, some of you may have seen, this is a Shop Fern Ridge Entrepreneur Hour event. And we created these events to help support an effort called Shop Fern Ridge, which is a multi-vendor marketplace with artisans, makers, and creators from the Veneta Shop Fern Ridge area who have banded together to sell their crafts and their wares. It's a partnership between Corvallis Foundry Collective, the City of Veneta, Oregon Rain, Rural Development Initiatives, Kelly Nonprofit Consulting, and others. And it's been funded through a generous grant from the Marion Ewing Kaufman Foundation and ongoing funding through Business Oregon, who is helping support this. Business Oregon, through the CARES Act, also has some funding available that we've been able to get small businesses access to legal and accounting, marketing, and other things. So as we go through this, there may be something that comes up that you may need some additional legal service. You can certainly reach out to us and we can see if we can connect you. Michael is a great friend and a wonderful giving attorney, and his organization has helped a number of small businesses that we have talked with. So I want to just go through. Michael is here to really answer questions, but we want to try to keep those questions in a relatively broad perspective. So if there's something really, really deep that you have, if you can put that into chat, we would greatly appreciate that. With that, I'm just going to kind of open it up, Michael, let you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your firm, and then we'll take questions. Now we don't.
I sometimes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can hear me? Okay, sorry about that. Everybody can hear me? Thumbs up.
You're
okay,
good.
Sorry. So our firm. Okay, our firm is Rational Unicorn Legal Services. We're a certified benefit company. We do pay-as-you-go legal services for small businesses, nonprofits, and artists and entertainers. We're very different law firms, not just in name, but in the way that we believe they go hand in hand. So we don't just do things and say, here's your contract, have a good day, or just contact us when you have a liability issue. The whole purpose is to do preventative business law. So we work with you at the beginning, even if you don't believe it, no matter where you're at. There's no, when I reach this gross, I have an attorney. So we walk with people. So we have clients who have started bakeries from their kitchen all the way to commercial bakery. We have clients who are refugees who own food trucks. I mean, it goes on and on. So it's very nitty gritty, which I enjoy, and I know Nicole, my colleague, also enjoys because it's very real, especially during pandemic times. We've had really exciting things we've helped people with. We've also had to, of course, help clients close down or restructure, but we're in it to help people, wherever they may be. So today, I oftentimes do, a presentation. We do questions like that. My biggest thing is I want to make sure that I'm answering questions that are near and dear to you, things that you've been thinking about. So I know that there were a couple of people who submitted questions previously, but I think the best way to do this is just to take questions. And, of course, like Brad said, if you have a very specific question, you can put in the chat. We also offer no cost consults. So if you go to our website contact page and you do a submission, you can schedule a consult with one of our attorneys and kind of tell them what you're going through or what you need to work on. And then they can present to you back a personalized kind of a la carte menu of potential projects that may be good for you. So yeah, I'm just happy to take questions. I know it's kind of odd because we can't all raise our hand. We're not in a classroom setting, but is there anybody that wants to ask a question?
So you certainly can unmute and ask questions. I know Michael's having a little bit of internet bandwidth issues, so you're seeing him kind of shrink and grow on the screen as Zoom is trying to adjust for that and a few glitches, but we'll work through that. Michael, I'll start out one that we hear all the time. It's, okay, I'm starting my business. What do I need to do? Do I need to register my business? I'm a sole proprietor. Should I be an LLC? I've registered my business. I've done everything I need to do. So maybe just a little bit for these startups or people who have kind of got things going, a little check-in on where that happened, where those steps happen for most folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody, when you start, no matter what you're doing, you're automatically a sole proprietor, meaning it's just you. You're sharing your individual and business liabilities and assets. So if I was, selling t-shirts, if I was opening a coffee shop, no matter what I do, we always start as a sole proprietor. What you may be alluding to is there's a single member LLC. So there's this question of if I file with the state in assumed business name, does that give me protection? Is it like having a business entity? So if I decide that instead of being Michael's t-shirts, I want to call myself, Bob's Burgers t-shirts, something like that. Well, of course, there'd be trademark infringement there. But essentially what we have to do is we have to first and foremost check and see that there's not another business name that exists. Not just in the state here, because even if it's clear on the business registry for the state, there could be somebody else in another state who has that same business name, or there could be somebody else who owns a federal trademark. So before we even name our business and before we even file for either an assumed business name or an LLC, we want to make sure we do a trademark viability search. So even if we don't want a trademark, what we're preventing getting a cease and desist letter. The reason is because if I were to file a business today in Oregon, I would be able to file the same name as someone in Washington or the same name as someone in Kansas. The business Secretary of State offices, they don't communicate with each other. And the Federal Trademark Office, they don't communicate with each other. So what that means is as I'm picking a name, I want to make sure that not only can I get it at the state level, but that nobody owns the federal trademark for doing services under that name. Now, the reason why you would get an LLC or not get an LLC is because when you have an LLC or you have a corporation, you have a structured business entity that provides you a corporate shield. What that means is that if someone were to sue you, they wouldn't be able to get to your personal assets. The liability would stem from your business. In addition to forming that LLC, filing for that LLC, there's a couple other things that are really important when you form your business. It's not just the forming the LLC that gives you that protection, because the court could say, well, you just formed an LLC, but you're still using your personal funds or you're still contracting personally. And then they would do what they call piercing the corporate veil, and they would still hold you individually liable. So what you need to do is, in addition to forming the LLC, we want to make sure that we have an EIN, an employer identification number, tied to a business bank account. So all of our business funds for our LLC are going to come through that business account, and then they're going to go to us as being payments for owner distributions. We also want to make sure that business terms of use and contracts and things like that, disclaimers, they're all going to come from our business outward. Even though we're the only owner and we're going to be signing on behalf of our business, we need to create this separate entity so that for liability purposes, we're safe. So if you're just a sole proprietor, not just as in that's not good enough, but just as in there's no corporate shield or LLC shield, the risk is that you are giving the other person or the public the ability to come after you personally for liability or debts. And so we don't want that, of course. So that's why we form one of these entities.
So it's interesting because in listening to you, what I picked up was that, there's obviously this business structure, but then there's also the minimizing risk, which goes into having the idea, not only having the right business structure and entity, but insurance and permits and licensing and keeping your funds separated and making sure your contracts are not between you. Like, so for instance, if I had a sole proprietor LLC, but the contracts were all in my name, I might not have that because the contract's between me, I might have a lease on a building. It's a personal lease on a building or something. So there are a lot of details from what you just said to go through to make sure you are in fact operating as even a single member LLC, correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So everything you do outwardly, whether it's an invoice or bill, it should be paid from your business account. Anything you kind of do business related should come from your business. So the client service contract or the terms of use or the refund policy, whatever you have that's outward facing, it would be an agreement between your company and that person or the public, not from you individually. Granted, I know it's you individually if you have a small business and it's just you, but we have to create this version of a separate entity, because if we don't, then that person is gonna, if there's ever an issue, try to come after you personally as well. And I may not have mentioned this too well, but what I wanted to talk about really quickly is the difference between a sole proprietorship and LLC. Is not just that corporate shield, it's that you're going forward with all of the things that I mentioned, all the separations. A lot of people get this confused. So there's an assumed business name, an ABN. It's the same thing as a DBA, a doing business as, or a fictitious business name. So if you ever hear any of those, if someone says I have a DBA or I have an assumed business name, those are all the same thing. What that is that is telling the state that you are operating your business under a different name than you yourself as a person. So instead of just Michael Jonas's Hamburgers, I have some sort of name that I'm operating under. A lot of people think that filing just that initial assumed business name in itself, if they haven't filed an LLC or a corporation, that it's protective, that it's giving them an entity structure. And the answer is that it's not. And that's what a lot of people don't realize is even though we're doing a Secretary of State filing for that assumed business name, if we don't create an LLC or corporation, we're not getting that corporate protection.
Michael, can you talk a little bit about, Jesse said DBA, doing business as.
Doing business as. So an assumed business name or ABN, that's what Oregon calls it. It's the same thing as a DBA or doing business as. It looks like, Sarah, did you have a question? And it looks like Heather is also raising her hand.
Yeah, Sarah had a question about benefit corporation and LLC.
Sure. So I get this question a lot. Our firm's a benefit company, and in Oregon, an LLC or a corporation can get benefit company certification. A lot of people think that it's a separate business entity. It's actually not. It's kind of like the green building certification. It is a certification on top of your pre-existing business entity. It's very confusing, and Brad can attest to this. So essentially, kind of like how the National Association of Realtors owns the word realtor, B Corp Labs, which is an international certifier, owns the words B Corp. So you don't necessarily have to go through B Corp to become a certified benefit company. In Oregon, for example, not only does the Secretary of State recognize it, since 2015, Kate Brown, when she was the Secretary of State, she worked on codifying benefit companies. So when we form a business, if you know already that you want to be one, we can put that into our filing. If you don't, that's fine. We can figure that out later. But in Oregon, both companies, so LLCs, because it's a limited liability company, and corporations can get benefit company status. So this is the confusing part, is that when you hear benefit company, that could be an LLC, it could be a corporation. They could be approved by B Corp Labs and be a B Corp, kind of like a realtor, they own that term. Or maybe they're a benefit company and they were approved, I think Brad as well, through benefit company or benefit corporations for good, a friend of ours who is one of the 4 state certifiers. So the main point of the benefit company is it's not necessarily, so it's not a different business entity. It doesn't give you tax breaks. It doesn't give you anything like that. What it gives you is, instead of you telling people that you're great, which you can still do, is it's a third party certifier who is doing this evaluation, investigation, holding your fire to the feet, or feet to the fire, excuse me. So it's kind of like a social entrepreneurial business that has a coach or a mentor or a certification process, so that you can be stamped that you can say that this third party has certified us. It's really great for marketing because people often, especially in Oregon, and especially just, I mean, in the United States in general now, people want authenticity and people purchase with their values. And so if I have 2 companies that are similar and one's a benefit company and one's not, I know that this benefit company has been certified by this third party. So I have a little bit more faith in what they're doing. The gist of the benefit company, or the whole purpose of it, is to follow the triple Ps, and that's profit, people, and planet. So your company can be profitable, and it's encouraged. I mean, we look at, Ben and Jerry's and New Seasons and Patagonia, they're highly profitable, but they also think about planet and they also think about people. And every company does this differently, right? So what we do as a law firm is entirely different. Maybe like a t-shirt company, they have biodegradable ink, and every company has different programmatic or sort of things that they can do. And so what you do is kind of like a nonprofit. You make annual goals, and then you do a report on it. So we had goals last year and we have goals this year that meet our benefit company values. And then we put out a public statement, which is a benefit company report, where people can read what we're doing in terms of that benefit company. I hope that's, is there anything, Brad, that I missed?
No, I think that's great. We had Tom on last week, and we'll get that recording out there very quickly. We'll get it edited and get it up for you. I think when I talk with companies about benefit companies, they were created for a couple of reasons. One, so the companies could in fact claim credit for the good things they're doing, and have a third party looking at them saying, yeah, they are doing it. And secondly, also, if you have a company with shareholders, it indemnifies you in ways, shapes, and forms, because it's written into your operating agreements and some other things, so that you can make decisions that aren't purely profit-based. If you are a company that has stock, you're supposed to be running the company to make the stockholders more money. Well, if I'm a cabinet maker and I decide to buy forest certified sustainable wood from Oregon versus cheaper plywood from say Canada or somewhere else, that may not be doing my profits as much, but it may be part of the mission of the business. So there is some other things down the road, but for most small businesses, and a lot of you have asked me and asked us about, where can we find green shipping? And where can we ship through a company that offsets carbon? Can we do these types of things? If that is your business and how you're trying to run your business, then being a benefit company and getting credit for that and having an organization double checking you and pushing you to be a little better here and there makes complete sense. So yeah, I think you covered it very well. A lot of artisan makers, creators, and small manufacturers are trying to figure out how to use, not use plastic to ship, not use, where do I find cardboard boxes made of recycled materials? How do I do this or that? How do I lessen my carbon load? How do I use, as you said, biodegradable inks or whatever those may be? If those are in fact baked into your business operating principles, get credit for it. Be able to put the stamp up there. Be able to tell your customers, we do these things, and we signed up for third-party certification so that it's not just us saying that we did it. Heather, you can unmute and ask your question or throw it into the chat, or I see your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you. So my question was about protecting your business name. So I have an assumed business name currently, and I'm working on putting together an LLC. However, the LLC will not have the same name. That way I don't have to change everything and add LLC to the end of my business name. So is my assumed business name protected under that LLC, the name itself, not the business?
Yeah, so that's a good question. If you formed your assumed business name prior and you haven't formed your LLC yet, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to change your assumed business name owner. Instead of it being owned by you individually, it'll have to now fall under the new LLC that you form. Because what happens is that assumed business name, as it is, it ties back to you as a person. It doesn't tie back to your business. So those would be the steps. Is you would form your LLC, and then if you want to keep that assumed business name of a different name, you would change the owner to be owned by your LLC, so that the assumed business name, the liability of it, would fall back onto the business.
And I'm assuming, okay, Michael, that's just a form. I mean, that's just a form and a checkbox for most small businesses.
Yeah. I mean, it gets confusing because there's lots of Secretary of State forms, but yeah, I mean, it would be an assumed business name amendment. So the first thing you would want to do is form the LLC, because you can't amend the assumed business name and tell them the new owner is an LLC that's not yet there. So you'd want to form the LLC, make sure it's approved. And then once that's approved, you would do an assumed business name amendment. And then those are my dogs, by the way. If you hear the sound.
They're happy.
And then you would, hey.
They have something to say about it too.
Yeah, they have opinions about assumed business names.
Yes.
So, and then, you would put that under the LLC, so that the liability would fall under the LLC.
Correct. Yeah, I understand the liability would fall under it, but would the protection of the assumed business name? Yes. So okay.
You can actually put as many assumed business names under an LLC as you want. So on one hand, it's a really convenient thing to do, because you can have like shortened versions of your name. Maybe you want to sell like coffee and t-shirts, so you have different branding. You could put a variety of assumed business names. So it could be your public facing name, or it could be like Brad's Enterprises LLC, and it's kind of like a holding company of these different assumed business names. So it's really great and convenient. But then the caveat of that is that all of the assumed business names that are under one LLC, they share liability with each other. So if you have, like, say you put a property, I would never put a property in the same as, another company, like a t-shirt company, because the liability, something could happen with the property that could cause the other business to be liable as well, because they're sharing the same finances and the same liabilities. So what I often do with clients is we will put several things under one LLC. So again, coffee and t-shirts and whatever else. So they all have different names. And the beauty of that is we can have different websites and branding. We just have to somewhere tell them that this is part of this business. So, presented by, or this is part of such and such LLC. So that's really great. Again, the risk is that they share liability. So sometimes with clients, we'll wait 6 months or a year after that, and we'll see, okay, well, where are all these assumed business names or brands now? Okay, this one you don't really use, let's get rid of that. This one deserves its own LLC. So we're going to cancel that assumed business name and make this its own LLC with its own liability pot. You know, the strategic thing is figuring out what you want to put under. If you are filing an LLC that's a particular name and you already have an assumed business name that's the same exact name, the Secretary of State, they make you cancel your assumed business name first. Right. For you, it doesn't sound like that's your thing because you have two separate names. So correct. That's not an issue.
So
one thing, Heather, you ask about protection. Are we talking about trademark
LLC
protection?
And then what's
that?
Yeah,
protecting the name of the assumed business.
So trademark protection, you're talking about, does an assumed business name give you trademark protection?
No, sorry. And sorry, I apologize. And that's a whole other question. No, an assumed business name does not give you trademark protection, nor does an LLC name or a corporation name. So for those particular protections, first and foremost, as I mentioned, we should do a viability search. So what that is we're going to look up the federal trademarks to see if anybody in the country has that name. And if they have that name, are they doing something that's in your class? So, maybe they have the name, but they're doing coffee and you're doing movies or media. So that's how Stumptown Media and Stumptown Coffee, they can both exist because they're the same name, but they're in different classes that are operating. So the answer is that no, that's the scary thing that I was alluding to is you can be able to file a business entity anywhere in the United States. You can get a domain, you can do any of that, but there's no guarantee that one, you're able to get a trademark, or two, that you're not already infringing on someone else's trademark who may decide to send you a cease and desist letter. So, that process is really important, protecting your brand. And I mean, that's a whole other long conversation. But what I'll say is just before you pick a name, to be sure to not just Google, but to look up trademarks and things like that. Because the thing is someone maybe could own the federal trademark, but they don't come up on Google, or it's not their company name. It's a brand of one of their lines of items, right? So we may not see that they have that federal protection. I hope that answers your question. So just filing and getting approved at the state level doesn't. There is something called a common law trademark, and in common law trademarks, it would be two people in one region who have similar names or the same name, and if neither person has a trademark, the first to use and can prove use is the first to win.
Woo-hoo!
So if you're in an area, and that's unlike some other countries where it's the first to file. So if you're in an area, just know that if you already know a company name that's similar to yours, don't even bother, because even though they don't have a trademark, they're going to be able to prove that they were first to use in that region, and they're gonna win that matter.
Okay. IP overall is confusing, from trademarks to copyrights to patents. There is a recording at when you, Michael and Nicole, both were at our World Roundup in November. They both had sessions. We also had Michelle Murray Rose with Bellwether Legal, and Michelle is a trademark and copyright attorney. And so her recording has been edited and is on Reinventing Rural under resources. So you can go in and watch that as well. So, and we still have to get Michael and Nicole's videos edited and up, but those are some great resources as well. So that is a really tough one. And I just want to point this out. Small businesses are being challenged. Really small businesses are being challenged with trademarks, okay? Be Good Bars, Judy Goodman in Joseph, Oregon got challenged, had to rebrand. The Holy Donuts in Klamath Falls, you may have seen an article in the Oregonian. I think we also posted it up on Reinventing World. They got challenged, and it wasn't even spelt the same way. And it wasn't, there were even a lot of similarities, but the cease and desist letters are scary and expensive, right, Michael?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, if you receive a cease and desist, just know that that's part of being in business, meaning that maybe it has merit, maybe it doesn't. So don't immediately shut down. Like, let's look into it and figure it out. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, you could be a small business owner and just, not have any idea and, get a cease and desist letter. And that's the reality. But it's great to be on the other side, right? Like, it's great to be the person who owns the trademark or has the power to stop people or has the power to license. I wanted to let you guys know we do have a class coming up. Maybe Nicole can post a link. We have it's me talking about intellectual property, but we also have a branding expert and a social media expert. So it's brand development, brand sharing, and then protecting your brand. And that's actually coming up soon. So folks may want to attend that as well. It looks like we have a couple of questions, John and Helen.
Yeah, John, you want to?
Helen, you were here before me. Do you want to go first?
Okay, my question regards liability. What exactly is the threat? I mean, if you get a cease and desist letter or whatever, is there a fine involved with that? And when you talk about becoming an LLC and that takes a personal liability off yourself onto your company, what kind of liabilities am I looking at based on the fact that I have a small company sewing stuff? Right now, I'm just an assumed business name, and I hadn't considered becoming an LLC because I don't do enough business. But I mean, if somebody were to come along and say, okay, I'm called Zigzag Bag, I was here first, what actual liability or what is my problem?
Sure. So I'll answer the first one first. If you have an assumed business name, so first of all, I'll tell you, these are all choice. Like, you could be a multimillionaire and operate as a sole proprietor with an assumed business name and no LLC or corporation for the rest of your life. Or you could be a corporation, or you could be an LLC. They're all choices, meaning it's where you're at, what you need. So the liability is that if you're a sole proprietor and you don't have an LLC, you are what they call commingling your assets. So your business and personal accounts and funds and liabilities, they're shared or they're seen as shared. So someone could come out, like if someone were to sue you, and I don't ever know, why or what the situation is, but if someone were to sue you, they could put a lien on your house or they could put a lien on your car. Like, they could potentially take personal property because the personal and business do not have a clear separation. So that is the fear, that is the liability, that if you have separated out your business liability from your personal, everything that you personally have is still protected. So if you have a mortgage, if you have a lease, if you have a car, whatever it may be, that's all personally protected. So that's what we're trying to do is the business would potentially be the one responsible, and maybe the business has insurance, or even if the business doesn't, maybe the business has contracts that help. So we're shielding our personal assets.
I understand, but supposing I get a cease and desist, is that the same as somebody suing me? Am I going to be charged?
So a cease and desist letter is not a lawsuit. It's not a filing. A cease and desist is it's a type of legal demand letter. So just like a legal demand letter where someone asks you to pay a bill, or they say like, hey, you were a contractor and you were supposed to remodel this a certain way. You're in breach, you owe us such and such by such and such date, or you have to pay this amount. So a cease and desist letter is putting you on notice that if you don't stop, then you potentially will be sued for an infringement action. As far as what the letter says, I mean, they're all different. One may say, stop what you're doing now. One may say you have a year to get rid of your inventory, and then we know that there's no way that you could change labeling or take stuff off the shelf. So we'll give you a year to. So the answer is you have to choose when you get a cease and desist letter. Is this, bullshit? Excuse my French. Is this legitimate? Do I contact them and make a deal with them? Is this sort of like, yeah, I agree with you, I am kind of infringing, but there's no way I'm going to pay that amount that you're asking. So we have to sort of see what it is. So the act of getting, it kind of sucks, but the act of being in business is there's times where you may get sued, there's times you may get audited, there's times you may get letters, but you want to be the person who has the upper hand, right? So you want to be the person who can say, well, look, I have a paper trail of contracts, I have a formal business entity, I have business insurance, I did a full search and didn't see anything. Like, you just want to be the person who's, and then if you can be the person who owns the intellectual property, you can be the one, not that that's what you want to do with your free time, but you can be the one who sends out cease and desist letters if you need to. So it's a matter of getting ready for that preemptively, because if you're a small business, so say, for example, you have produced, I keep using the example of a t-shirt company, but you've made t-shirts and it turns out that they infringe on another company and you just didn't know, but it absolutely is a strong case. What if you have to destroy all the t-shirts in your factory, or you have to give them out, you can't sell them for profit, or the profit's going to be recouped by the other company? You, in the height of what you're doing, have to do that, because if you don't, you're going to be sued for infringement, which is going to be a lot more money, is going to be litigation, and potentially is going to take up a lot of your time and be public, because these are public trials. So we can never fully prevent or preclude liability or prevent being sued or getting a letter like this. But what we can prevent is being the person who is on that side. And so that's what we do as small business owners is, I don't care if, Starbucks is contacting us. If my business owner who's protected has that protection, then we're going to fight Starbucks back. So it's sort of making sure that you have a dog in the race, I guess would be the expression.
Thanks. John, you had a question.
Yeah, and I'm kind of thinking that perhaps this strays into the area of the previously recorded session of talking about IP. Let me know if I should just go to there for the answer. But basically, I'm an artist and come up with projects that I want to concentrate on for a while. Recent project involved coming up with the brilliant idea, the core piece of intellectual property that turns out to be deliverable in a URL, an internet domain, which I was able to purchase for cheap, so nobody else had it. This wasn't on anybody else's radar screen. I was able to get a Twitter account, Instagram account, Facebook page. The idea behind the project, as far as I could tell, does not exist in the marketplace anywhere else. It's not necessarily meant to be a profit-making venture. However, I would like to raise funds to cover the expenses of producing the project, and as such might solicit donations or open a Patreon page or something like that. Maybe create merchandise that I could sell with the brand name of the project. And I'm treating it like a brand as I develop the idea and as I develop the guts of the project. At what point do I cross the line of it being a personal project to it being a entity that merits protection under either trademark or shielding from liability or whatever other benefits I might have from starting an LLC, a B Corp, et cetera, everything we've been discussing? At what point do I expose myself to the risk that if I don't do that, I could be looking at serious complications if somebody is offended by my project and wants to make life difficult for me, or wants to interrupt my access to my revenue stream?
Sure. So that's a really good question. So I teach a class often called Your Art is Your Business, and I'm big on creatives protecting their art because they're the ones that don't necessarily want to or don't know how to, or The idea that you would have to file a trademark or copyright for everything you're doing just seems daunting. So the answer is you're either in business or you're not. So the moment that you disseminate your items, you have the risk or the liability. I will tell you that, and I didn't talk too much about the distinction between trademarks and copyrights, but just briefly, trademarks are brand names and logos versus copyrights are the art, the original artistic or literary expression. So the painting, the photo, the thing you're writing, those are copywritten things, whereas the trademarking is the brand name. So essentially, there are common law copyrights and there's common law trademarks. So copywriting is really interesting because the moment that you make it, it's actually copywritten. So someone may on the bottom of a website write rights reserved 2021. They can do that. They just can't use a circle C, which indicates a federal registration. The difference is when you file for the federal registration for a copyright, for example, it gives you the power to have both a timestamp on the filing, and then if you needed to stop someone in court, if you needed to file an injunction or you needed to get damages, so you find that someone's using your work and making money from it, you wouldn't, unless you got a federal copyright registration, be able to stop them from making that money and get that money back. So, but by the very nature of you making things and posting them, I do want you to know that there is a common law copyright where if you could prove that you made it, then you can prove you made it. And I don't know if that helps, but it's sort of like once you decide to share those things in the public realm, once you decide to open a business, even if you sell one t-shirt, no matter what you do, once you do that, you're either in it or you're not. That's the hard part about this. You know, I have clients who are kind of like, well, I'm kind of in business, I'm kind of not. I'm like, you can't kind of be in business because you could sell one product and that product could be the thing that causes liability or tax audit or whatever else. So I would just say as an artist, and then anybody on this call, like think of for your business, like what are the formalities that I need to do now? And even though they may seem like a pain in the ass or they may seem overwhelming, if we take care of them now and we get these things in place, then as you're growing and making and doing, you know that you have those things already established. You already have a trademark pending, you know, you already have copyright registrations pending. The other question I often get is, should I copyright everything? Like, what if I take thousands of photos or draw thousands of pictures? It's impossible for me to copyright everything. I always tell people, like, you copyright the things you know are going to be shared. So for example, if you're a person who draws pictures of cats, right? And you've been really successful meeting someone who's a card distributor. They want your pictures of cats on cards and on calendars and things like that. After you've created them, before they get disseminated, you have to file a copyright. Because how are we to prove that when it's hit market that, you know, so what I'm trying to say is we sort of need to be strategic. Like we can't copyright all of our drawings of cats, but we're surely going to copyright the ones that we know are going to go on greeting cards that are going to be out on stores, or the music that we know is going to be licensed, or the art that we know is going to be on a t-shirt. You know, we sort of have to pick and choose those that we feel are going to be disseminated well. We can talk more about it in detail because it's hard. My answers are generalized just because of the forum. And then also when I know more, obviously I can get more in depth with specifics.
Sure. Can I follow up with one additional point? The common law copyright, I think I understand, and the reason to register it is to essentially allow you to go after other infringers. Does that follow to trademarking? Because one of the essences of this particular project is a recognizable brand under which the creative work gets done. So there's like a flag waving over the project that's branded with something that resembles a trademark. Does the copyright protection that the content of the project might already benefit from, is the process of protection of the trademark somewhat similar in the way it works?
So let me try to answer this in a quick way. So the United States Patent and Trademark Office, the USPTO, they oversee patents and trademarks. The copyrights are overseen by an entirely different office, the United States Copyright Office, which is governed by the Library of Congress. Right. They're two separate processes. You can both trademark and copyright something. So like if you have a really artistic logo, your logo, for example, would be trademarked. It would be tied to commerce. It would be tied to the process that you're doing. Sorry. And then, your name can be trademarked as well. The art that's actually part of the art that you're doing could be copywritten and registered, but the logo itself, if the logo is artistic, the logo itself could be copywritten because it would be, so the words to remember are for copyright, it's an original and artistic literary expression. They don't ask you when you're copywriting how you're going to be selling it or what you're going to be doing with it. But for trademarking, they do. You have to prove use in commerce. And commerce is not necessarily, money, because nonprofits can own trademarks as well. It's transactions with the public. How is this being disseminated to the public? So I hope that answers your question. In one thing or one project, there could be multiple forms of intellectual property and then multiple forms of intellectual property protection.
Great.
Good enough. Thank you very much. Sounds like
I wanted to just jump in on a couple quick questions. I see Logan, you're here from the Burns Paiute tribe. Do you have any questions that might be applicable? I know, you're talking about trying to get a farmer's market started up there. Anything that we might be able to touch on, or anyone else? Obviously, we know that the copyright trademark IP thing is a deep well. We will do a couple of things. One, Michael, I already sent you an email saying I would love to get your course up on Reinventing Rural, or figure out a way that we can get that delivered. And then we obviously need to do some follow-ups with a couple, other attorneys and get some real good dialogue going on, because that was a great question that it wasn't one that's ever been covered or I've heard come through. I will tell you this: if you are building a brand that you're going to invest time and money into, trademark it, okay? Protect it, because you have no protection if you don't. And in today's world, it just makes sense. If you're going to be paying for packaging, you're going to be paying someone to create a logo for you and a lot of money. You're going to be, spending money on social media advertising, building brand equity. You want to protect it. You don't buy a brand new car and drive it off the lot without insurance. Okay, that's doesn't mean that someone's not going to come along down the road and try to mess with you. Even having a trademark doesn't always keep you out of the legal sphere. But if you are building now, if it's of no value, if you're building a brand that has no value, you can change the name tomorrow from Pete's Coffee to Sam's Coffee. It's a different story. Okay, but I know that with Judy, she was in business 4 years. She was in 38 states. She was in multiple locations. She had brand equity and had to rebrand. Logan.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't know if I have. I just wanted to second, maybe getting that class up that you teach. I think that would be really interesting and useful for some of, especially for some of our tribal artisans and stuff. I think that'd be really great. But yeah, I don't have any really other questions at the moment.
Great. And I know we also have Emily is on here, which Emily's with Warm Springs Community Action Team, and also is running the Painted Pony Espresso, getting that up and running and training an incredible staff. Again, I think also there's a lot of artists in there that are probably very interested in what does this trademark, copyright, and this whole thing look like.
Yeah, and I would love it, Logan, and everybody else, if you're able to make that class. The other thing I'll tell you is me and our colleagues, I mean, if you ever want us to speak to a group or, something you have, we're always happy to do that. And for example, it may be a specific thing, like you were mentioning, opening a market. Obviously there's a variety of things that are geared directly towards that versus more general conversations. Are there any other questions?
Well, there's one here from Laura in the chat. Have my LLC papers in place for my creative activities. I'm sure I'm not confident I know the right legal questions to ask. Share what I have and get what I'm doing with an attorney and get feedback and assessment of risks, to-dos and everything. I know you do offer a 30-minute, consultation. We do have some funding available for rural businesses through the CARES Act that's coming through Business Oregon to help offset also the fees that you may have to get an attorney to make sure that you're in the right place and you're doing the right thing. So we have paid Michael's firm we've been able to pay for some work that Michael's firm has done for a number of small rural businesses. So don't hesitate. You can reach out to me and we can get you connected that way as well.
So as far as Laura is your question, yeah, we're absolutely able to do that. We've done that as a service for a lot of people, kind of doing like not an audit. An audit has a bad connotation, but an inventory of what you've done and what you need to do. It probably wouldn't fall into the 30-minute no-cost consult, just because that's more of actually pulling documents and doing document review and things like that. But it's probably very reasonable and just like an hour build. And as Brad, take Brad seriously. He's saying that there's money available. Take that money. It's CARES Act money. So anything like that, if anybody wants to know what's going on, not looking at documents, but even just having a consult call, if you're sort of wondering, am I on the right track? I've done this, this, and this, what else am I missing? We're always happy to have those conversations. And sometimes the conversation is, you did it right, you did it all right, and that's fine. Sometimes it's, you did everything right, but you have to take care of this one thing because it's really important that you do it right, and here's why. But yeah, so don't hesitate to reach out to our firm, and that's the whole thing with how we operate and our accessibility. You don't get sucked in and you owe a $3,000 retainer and we charge you for a phone call. Like, we don't do any of those practices. So it's feel free to contact us and just know that we're friendly, we're reasonable, we communicate with our clients.
Hi there, this is Nancy. I was driving and I've pulled over and I'm stopped. Are you there?
I'm here, yeah.
What's your question?
Okay. So I have formed an LLC. I have not yet, and unfortunately I hadn't heard about public benefit corporation. So I'm going to have to go in and amend that, which unfortunately is going to cost me more money. But I need to it's a single manager LLC. I need to put my organizational document in place. And I was wondering if you have a template that I could follow to do that, that would also help with the with the public benefit corporation aspects. And then maybe, Brad, I'll take you up on a little bit of money. And after I complete the template, come and see those folks.
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, an LLC information change to add that you're a benefit company. There's no fee for that, and there shouldn't be. The fee that the state charges is if you're doing a name change. So if you're filling out a form that is saying that for the information change you have to pay a fee, just know that that's not the right form.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, we don't really. It's hard because we're a big fan of DIY, but the moment we touch things, we have liability. And so it's almost better just to contact us for that service than for you to find a template and then have us review it and then tear it apart. It's just better that we just do that operating agreement. It's probably going to be the same or less money and less stressful because we'll just do it and we'll do it correctly right away. And that's not me trying to upsell. That's just templates that work for everybody. They're very vague and ambiguous, and they're not going to meet what you need. So yeah, I think just contact our firm and fill out a submission and we'll do a consult and then see what you need. And then based on that, we can go from there.
Yeah, and I
Okay,
think a couple
see what
things.
Brad-
We love to give Michael and his firm business, okay, but we also want to make sure that the things you can do on your own are getting done on your own. The things you don't need an attorney for, you are getting done through those services. And then when you need an attorney, you know, the funds are there to really cover those things that are critical. A couple quick things, you know, the Small Business Development Center can help you a lot of times on forming your company with a lot of the paperwork and things. They do that. So in, you know, the LCC, SBDC with Robert and his team are really good with those things. Secondly, there's another great resource that a lot of people don't know about, which is the Small Business Advocate Office up at the Secretary of State's office. So Trevor and that team up there are really good at helping say, oh, this is, you know, helping you kind of wade through some of the multitude of forms and documents as well. So you can Google Oregon Small Business Advocate and get help through that office, which is part of the Secretary of State. And they work really hard to try to help small businesses do what they can do. And then you get to the next stage, and that's where we can, you know, help connect you with Michael and Nicole, who, by the way, Nicole did her workshop in Spanish. So if there are Latinx small businesses out there that you know of that need help, we, you know, Nicole is able to work with them in a native language. So that's really critically important as well. You know, also, I have one last final question, Michael, in 2 minutes. At what point should someone go to like Tom with Benefit Corporations of Good to get help with the benefit company steps? And what point do they need to come to you, or do they need to come to you, or how does that work? Where's that delineation?
Yeah, so with Tom, I mean, I introduce people to Tom right as I'm forming a business. So if I have a new client and they're forming an LLC, I mean, we put on our questionnaire for the LLC, do you want to be a benefit company? Are you interested in this? And there's no pressure, but what we do is we introduce them to Tom so that Tom can explain the benefit company process, because that's not something we do. So literally anytime, you know, even if you're just starting your business, you know, you can make goals for what you're going to do as a benefit company. You can start that process now. As far as when they should come to us, I mean, we have clients that are in every stage of business. You know, we have clients who are opening a commercial space and we didn't represent them before, but now they want us to do a commercial lease review. We have clients who had a hobby that's becoming a business. So literally we're sort of equipped for anywhere you are in the process. Some of our clients, they've been open for years, but they haven't redone their contracts in 10 years. So they're like, maybe we should do this. So they contact us to look at, you know, 10-year-old contracts to just make sure that they're up to date or that they need to be rewritten. So yeah, and either, I know that that's not a good answer, but anytime for either us or for Benefit Corporations for Good is fine.
Okay. No, that's kind of what I just wanted to, you know, sometimes that you talk to one person, so you should talk to this person. And I know that if there are advantages of the relationship, because I know that you are a benefit corporation. You have worked with Tom on the other side, so you know what it's like to be a business trying to be a benefit company, as well as being a business that represents benefit companies. So there are,
that's right.
You know, and you're a small business, and so you know, you're still in that place where you're connected, you've got sensitivity. Not that big firms don't, but I'm just saying, you know, you are there yourself.
Yeah, that's definitely right. And I think in general too, not just with our business model, but all of our attorneys. I mean, I don't hire an attorney unless they're also relationship oriented and community oriented. You know, like you can be the best attorney, but if you can't talk to ordinary people, you know, salt of the earth, then, you know, you're not for my team. So just know that too. You know, we have resources internally. We're also really known for helping people with other resources and guiding them. So saying, you know, hey, it looks like you need a bookkeeper. Well, we have 4 really great bookkeepers we can refer you to. Or it looks like you may want to talk to this nonprofit. Well, we know them. You know, like we sort of, our goal is to not just help with the legal stuff, but to be kind of a resource hub for those other items that are needed. So yeah, I love what I do, even on a day when I'm tired. I really enjoy the process, and I think all of us do, all of us on our team. There's something really great about helping people create businesses. It's an inspirational thing. So, and I'm proud of all you who are on this call, whatever you're doing, just to, get up out of bed and learn on a Zoom call like this. Says a lot about you and your furtherance during a pandemic. So, it's one step and one day at a time.
John had asked a question, and I know we're going over here a minute. I just didn't want to miss that one. And he asked, I think it was about an online service. I can't find it in the chat here.
Oh, Copyrights World.
Yeah.
So I don't know that specific one in general. I do know there's a lot of, I don't want to say spammy because that's, I don't know who.
I will. I'll say that. I mean, a lot of this stuff. You gotta be very careful.
There's a lot of companies that want you to form a business through them or copyright through them or do this or that. You have to be very careful with that. Some of the things are things you can just do on your own. And so they're charging you, exorbitant fees. Some of the things you could do after talking to us for an hour instead of paying and actually having like human dialogue, instead of like filling out a form, hoping that it goes the right way, and then having to clean it up later. So I don't know about that specific one. I will say there's a lot of copyright. So you can license something you make, meaning you have a common law copyright, you haven't filed or gotten a federal copyright. You can tell someone like, I want you to use my art this way or my writing this way. So there are services who charge you for those things. Like I think the biggest message is just be very careful, because there's a lot of these. We even get them at our office. Like we get forms from, it looks like the trademark office and it's not. And it says at the bottom, very small, this is not a bill, we're not a government office. So you just have to be very careful with these services. I'm sure there are legitimate ones out there, but my whole thing is, if I'm going to throw money at something that's important for my life or my business, I want to make, and whether it's a lawyer or a CPA or whatever it is, I want to make sure that that's a real person who actually understands what I'm going through or what I need. The poor man's copyright, that's actually not true. That's a myth that continues if you send copies of your work through mail. That's not any more protected than anything else. So the protection lies in the creation of it, the initial creation. So that's the copyright. And then the federal registration, which allows you to seek an injunction and damages and to do licensing.
Well, I'm going to say thank you very much. Goodbye from Shop Fern Ridge Lake behind me, Fern Ridge Reservoir, which I'm really not there, but I wish I was today. It's beautiful. I know there's a ton more questions. You are more than welcome to email those questions to me. We can get them to Michael. We can also, have Michael back at some point. He's so incredibly generous with his time. I cannot say thank you enough. And everybody, please stay safe out there. And
thanks for having me, you guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye.